In the culture war, there are no winners, just podcasters. Only a few are willing to risk their lives in the face of some of the dumbest ideas to have ever captured human civilization. Every week, we, Meghan Daum and Sarah Hayter, humbly accept this mission in order to bring you conversations that are equal parts unapologetic, uncompromising, and bitter. Welcome to a special place in hell. How's life in hell for you today, Sarah?
Going good. We're recording later than our normal time, so that's nice.
Yeah, it's
I've gotten to
not
decompress.
7 o'clock in the morning for me.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yes. And I'm also, for those of you watching on YouTube, I am attempting to do this without my glasses because I'm so sick of them reflecting off the screen.
But can you read? Like how good?
I
is your
have
eyesight?
enlarged the print on my documents to 64-point font, so I can see. It's like the eye chart. Like I'm looking at the top line of an eye chart.
Cool.
Yeah. Apparently, the way anybody over a certain age, if they're doing a video podcast and they don't have reading glasses on, they're using a teleprompter.
Really?
Fun fact. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So if our people would like to donate to the cause, getting me a teleprompter, just something to keep in mind.
I've always wanted glasses. I think I would look good in glasses.
You would, but just look, you'll get them soon enough.
Okay.
And you can always get fake ones.
Yeah, but that, I don't know. That's not what I want. You know what I mean? Like I want the whole thing. I want the true, real partial disability.
Yeah. It is a disability, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. I feel like everybody gets LASIK now, so you don't see glasses as much as you used to. It's funny because when you look at a picture from like the 70s, not only is everybody really thin, so many of them are wearing glasses because people didn't have contact lenses.
Yeah. I think people wear contact lenses a lot. Yeah. I know some people who've had LASIK, but I know lots of people would just wear contacts every day. Yeah. My husband wears contacts every day and his entire family is just glasses people, but they all wear, so many of them wear contacts. You wouldn't know.
Oh, I wear contacts, but I need
reading,
I need reading glasses to see the screen. That's the issue.
Oh, okay. So you already have contact lenses.
I already have contacts in, but if I need to read, no, this is just in the last few years. I need reading glasses. This is a new development.
Okay. So in addition to the regular.
Yeah, it's just a disaster.
Without your contact lenses, can you see well?
That's funny because if I'm reading at night, I just had to take my contacts out and I can read a book. I can hold it up. I can, I can't see the computer screen. Anyway, riveting stuff.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. This is an episode that's not exactly right off the headlines.
No.
We're gonna talk about something that we've been talking about a lot. Just the two of us.
Yeah. This was like it has to do a little bit with the topic of my debate, which was a sexual revolution, and a kind of a tangent that I fell into, like a little rabbit hole when I was researching and prepping for the debate itself. This idea
prepping
of like prepping for something
you were
that
not
was
able to
it was
use
totally
90% of your
90. I don't think I was able to use anything. Like there was like 2 things I was able to use, but it was
okay.
Anyway.
This is the Free Press debate. In case you're just joining us, this is the Free Press has the sexual revolution failed debate that was in Los Angeles last month.
It wasn't much of a debate, but it was a show, and it was a fun show, I think, for the people in the audience. Anyway, I was a little bit disappointed because I was ready with my little, my little debater hat on.
But you won anyway.
I won, yeah.
Yeah, so this is the era that's referred to sometimes as the baby scoop era. And my understanding is this is from about 1945 to 1973. And unwed mothers, basically, if you were pregnant out of wedlock, chances are you would be, let's just say, highly encouraged to give up your baby for adoption. And you did some research and found out it wasn't quite that straightforward even.
No. And it's interesting because this is a time in which adoption became normalized. Before kind of the early, 1920s, 30s, it wasn't a very common thing in America to use adoption as a way of building your family. People were concerned that the kids that they would receive might be, might have some physical problems, or is there something wrong with like, the product that you were receiving. But it was also just frowned upon socially, because there was nobody liked the idea of potentially taking a child away from their mothers. So this was a period in which it became increasingly normalized to adopt children, partially because it was likely that there were just more unwanted, quote unquote, unwed mothers who were, who were in this predicament of having to be a single mother at a time in which that was just simply not acceptable, and there were not a lot of options available to you as a single mother. So many of them were pressured to give it up, and I think it's just fair to say we don't even have to say that they volunteer, quote unquote, to give it up. I think we should just be clear about it and say that they were coerced, because those who have looked into the historians and various people who are interested in the history of adoption in America, who have looked into the baby scoop era, found that many of the young women who had fallen pregnant and had given up their babies, when they were later asked about it, when they were interviewed, or just when anyone at all had asked them about it, they found that the vast majority were haunted by the decision. And they didn't even call it a decision most of the time. They said that somebody took my baby away from me, somebody stole my baby. And that this was a traumatic event of their lives that they thought about often, but it was a time where you really couldn't talk about it. The whole point of giving away your baby was to sort of pretend like it hadn't happened.
Right.
You hadn't gotten pregnant.
Right.
You had never had sex. You were a virgin still, and then you could pretend like you could just erase it from your mind. And so they had no one to talk about it. They had to keep it a secret. And it was something that they thought about a lot. And it was just, it was shocking how many babies were relinquished in this time, and, separated from their mothers. It's shocking.
So did you come across in your research, what were the scenarios? Because my understanding was that you would get, these would be young women or teenagers, and they would go to a home for unwed mothers. Mm-hmm. Right. And then there's all this idea of the Magdalene laundries. This is something that came out of Ireland, where literally the girls would be taken and they would do laundry during the course of their pregnancy. And I remember, this was something that was not uncommon. This was something that you would see on an after school special or on a TV show or something. Somebody would get pregnant and then they would go to some
so
kind
this happened to in your time.
No, I was a kid, but I
remember
watching some episode of some TV show, and that would happen. But it was portrayed as oh, this teenager got pregnant and we're going to help her. And so we're going to, she's going to go to a place where there's other girls like her, and they'll be kind of like she was going to boarding school or something. She was just mm-hmm. going away for a period of time, and she's going to have the baby and give it up to a good home. And this would be better for everybody. She would be able to go have her life. The baby would have parents that would be able to care for it. And it, I never, I didn't think about it too hard as I was growing up, but it was really portrayed as a win-win,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right.
And I never thought of it as particularly tragic, although, certainly there would be a lot of women who would talk about having done this. There were a couple high profile cases. Patti Smith actually, I think when she was 19 or 20 or something, had a baby, gave it up. Joni Mitchell famously, and wrote a lot of songs about it. It's a big part of her biography. But this is very, so what was your sort of relationship to the concept of adoption just throughout your life?
I think I had never really thought very much about the mothers themselves. I assumed what everybody assumed, which is that they just didn't want the child, or they're in the kind of circumstances where they can't possibly keep the child. And that because of the mother's circumstances, it is, in everybody's best interest, to have the baby, be adopted by a loving family, a loving and stable family, I don't think I thought too hard about the mothers themselves. I presumed that if this was happening at all, it was probably happening because, on some level, the mother allowed it to happen. And it really, messed with me to read all these cases and these interviews of women who had what they say is relinquished or surrendered their baby. That's what they say, surrender, because it's like they say that it. I never felt like I gave my baby away. I felt like the baby was taken. I felt like, and then I grieved in the way that a parent grieves when they, lose their child, whether by by death or by forced separation like this one. But so many of them described the event, that as something that was, the defining, most significant and, defining event of their lives, something they thought about all the time. They did not move on, forget and move on and build a new life. They constantly thought about their child. Many of them regretted having gone through it, but they also felt like they had no other option.
I mean, I think it's probably unimaginable. Like, I think
right.
They probably can't even get their minds around an alternative other than some kind of shotgun wedding. I mean, so it's either like marry the guy who knocked you up or do this.
Their parents would never allow it. They would say, you're going to be disowned. Like, if you come back home with a baby, we're never going to talk to you again. I mean, there was no way for a woman to survive in that time, especially in the post-war years, with a baby and not be married. It was just an impossible thing for her to do. And so, but even then, right, even though this was such an impossible thing, so many of them recount the experience of labor in these maternity homes, and one of the most horrifying aspects of it is that these homes were really run by people who, I mean, they were convinced that they were doing the right thing. They were often working with the adoption agencies, which is, it's not amazing that there was like a profit motive involved, but they did not provide any kind of social social work or therapy or any kind of counseling to the young women about what labor was going to be like, what kinds of things it would feel afterwards. It was nothing like that. It was just they went into labor not expecting what would happen, not expecting the consequences of like the postpartum period, what would happen to them emotionally, what would happen to them physically. It was just traumatic all around. But many of them describe giving birth and then seeing their baby and not wanting to let go. Like, despite everything, despite the social consequences facing them, they wanted to keep their babies. And then they describe being coerced by, the caseworkers in the maternity home, doctors, nurses, like anyone around them to give up their baby. They were often kept in the dark about their rights, and led to believe that they couldn't take, there's some period where you can, like, after, relinquishing your child, where you like formally give it up. But they were kept in the dark about a lot of their legal rights, to keep their babies, and led to believe that they had kind of already given them up, and they didn't have many rights over this child. But it's so heartbreaking to read these stories of these women who describe looking at their babies, falling in love instantly, and thinking in, this like primal way, which I remember, like when I first gave birth, because it just wasn't something I expected, but it is deeply primal. You fall in love instantly. You don't want to let go. And that's what happened to these girls. And they had to let go anyway. And they grieved, terribly.
Sometimes I think they weren't even given the baby. I mean, I've heard stories like that. They didn't even get to see the baby. And I feel like also sometimes their parents were colluding with these homes or with the adoption agency. I mean, I feel like I've heard stories of the women being told by their parents or other people that the baby had died, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's telling that this period officially ended in 1973, which, what else happened in 1973? Roe, right? So, I wonder, like I'm sure there were fewer out of wedlock births once you start getting legalized abortion. more access to birth control, that kind of thing. So like before, this is like, so before 1945, were people just not having like sex? They were not having sex outside of marriage. I mean, it's just this kind of.